Hey folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. This is Mike's instant audiobook review of Tulsi Gabbard for Love and Country. If you don't know who Tulsi Gabbard is, you may have seen her on the Joe Rogan podcast or the YouTube clips on Joe Rogan. She's often on Bill Maher's panel of guests. Basically, she's, from a physical aesthetic standpoint, probably the most attractive politician in the United States going these days on the female spectrum. And Tulsi is from Hawaii. I didn't know this, but in the book she reveals that her mother was, white, Caucasian, as it were, and her father was from America, Samoa. So that's interesting. Tulsi was, had political office in Hawaii a couple of times, and she served in the U.S. military. And she ran for president in 2020, where she got a bit of fame because she was on the Democratic side of things, and on the Democratic debate night one, I guess they had so many Democrats ran for office, they had to split them up into two nights. And Tulsi went after Kamala Harris, who was kind of like, protected, or kind of the golden child of the Democratic Party at that time. And Tulsi went right after her on some hypocrisies, I believe about smoking the old ganja. I believe that's what it was. And so Tulsi found herself kind of being exiled and not really welcome to the reindeer games anymore of the Democratic Party. And she goes into more details on that in this book. And she eventually left the Democratic Party. And you might be thinking, okay, well, now she's a Republican. Well, I don't think she is. I don't think she's officially declared herself a Republican. She has been on, Tucker Carlson's podcast or show or whatever. But I think it's just kind of interesting that we're in such a divided society now that it's like if you're on someone's podcast or if you say one sentence, suddenly people have this whole outlook of your life, like you're on this side of things or that side of things, or you must think. And I've had people accuse me of things, it's just absurd, and people are assholes, you know what I mean? But Tulsi's got a good spirit, and if anyone asks, well, Mike, who would you vote for president? I always mention Tulsi Gabbard, and to me, she's kind of like picking up the torch of individual thought that a Jesse Ventura, although he's still doing that himself, but Jesse doesn't seem like he's up for running anytime soon. That ship might have passed if Jesse Ventura was going to run as a third-party candidate. Tulsi, I think if anything, she will probably eventually join the Republican Party. And I could see her doing really good things because I think she is very middle on a lot of topics, but not all topics. I mean, some things she really has strong opinions and values and thoughts on. And we get into that in this book. So this book is not necessarily a biography or a memoir. I don't know if there's a biography or memoir that she's already written. This is more of a state of the affairs. This book will probably not age particularly well, just because, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe some of the timely topics discussed in this book won't be such an issue, or they will have been resolved one way or another, or we'll all be dead. But in this book, she gets into some controversial topics, namely the various reasons why she left the Democratic Party. Her feelings of the incorrectness or the illegalities of the Patriot Act, very interesting. Some things about the Democratic Party that I was not aware of. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't. Jump in Joe Biden. Everybody else, it's really like quite a statement, quite a book of secrets revealed, so to speak. Maybe some of these things, aren't secrets, and maybe having this information, if you listen to the audiobook, maybe people could do something about it, maybe they can't. She does get into some of the, her probably, I don't know if it's her most controversial, but she really gets into, before anything, she talks about the threat of nuclear war. She talks about that, and a lot of people, she says, don't want to even think about it. They don't bring it up. She brings it up. She talks about that. I don't know if you remember 4 or 5 years ago, there was like this false alarm in Hawaii. And she says all the Hawaiian words properly, which is kind of fun. Like she says, like the way that she even says Hawaii, I can't even do it. It's like Hawaii. Like she pronounces every A and I. Hawaii. And then she's always saying, aloha, the spirit of aloha. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of fun when like someone who can actually speak the proper cultural words says them, because then you feel like a dumb white asshole when you can't. But she says all the words properly. Hawaii, aloha. Ukulele. Like, you know, she doesn't say ukulele, she says ukulele. You know what I mean? All these things. But then she gets into probably the hot topic item of the day, at least in the social front, the transgender discussion. She gets into it quite a bit and reveals some stats and facts, things that people may not want to hear, but probably should hear. She does reference, there's a Matt Walsh's documentary a few years ago that I watched. That'll change your perspective, I think, on that topic. It's a timely topic, and obviously, you know, people have their freedoms, as well they should. I think where a lot of people get upset is underage people maybe being influenced, you know, empowered to make permanent choices for temporary problems, perhaps. But Tulsi gets into that knee deep. So if you're looking for some thoughts on the transgender debates, I think there's more than one debate. I think there's a lot of debates. There's who's benefiting from these situations, corporations getting payoffs and so forth, money, doctors, like I said earlier, children getting influenced to make permanent decisions, for perhaps in some situations, or many, identity crisis or just confusion. So who knows? But anyway, Tulsi really gets into it. She's not afraid to make statements that might upset some people, might get some hashtags, but she's, you know, she's a gamer. And I've told people this and they don't listen. But when people, if they do ask, well, who would you like to vote for President, Mike? I always say these days, Tulsi Gabbard. You know, she was in the Democratic Party. She left the Democratic Party. This book really explains why she left the party. She saw a lot of hypocrisies in her statements, a lot of illegalities, especially about the Patriot Act and other things, and she really gets into it. So, I mean, is it kind of a preaching to the choir thing? It might be. Like I said, a lot of times I mention Tulsi Gabbard, even my associates or colleagues, or dare I say friends, who think they know politics, if I mention Tulsi, they don't know who the hell I'm talking about. And sometimes I have to start their memory and say, well, you know, she's like the attractive lady from Hawaii who talks politics. And there was a movie, I think it was it called it was Charlize Theron, who was like the vice president in this fictional movie. Was it called The Long Shot, or was it called something else? But basically, she's like the vice president, and she's gonna, you know, run for president. And then she has this, Seth Rogen becomes her boyfriend through a couple of circumstances, and so on and so forth. Pretty good movie. I don't know if I did a Mike Sense to movie review on it back then. I don't even know if it was titled The Long Shot, but it was Charlize Theron playing the vice president who wanted to become the president. And I've always kind of, because when I became aware of Tulsi Gabbard, it was right around that time. And at the time, like Charlize in that movie poster looked somewhat in the ballpark of Tulsi. Okay? So I've always kind of put those things together in my little memory. I'm a big fan of hers. You know, I'm pulling for her. I don't know. I mean, she's left the Democratic Party. As far as I know, she has not joined the Republican Party. I would be very curious. I don't think this is going to happen. If Donald Trump would choose her as his running mate, that'd be fascinating to me. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I think there's Officer Tatum on YouTube had some revealing information that Trump might have already chosen his VP person. I thought Trump might have said that at that debate last week, but he didn't. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Tulsi. I would rather her be president than anybody else going these days. I think she has the integrity. As a former military person, she talks about how she had to read the list of the deceased every day in the military when she was actually fighting and for our country, and very, you know, sad. So, I mean, I'm a big fan of hers. So I say, listen to the book, Tulsi Gabbard, Loving Country. I give it a nice 4 out of 5.